Let's talk about the Pope for a minute, because we've learned a lot about our newly elected Pope since this time yesterday when the news broke. He was Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, and now he's Pope Leo XIV. And he's from Chicago. He's born in Chicago, as I was calling him yesterday online, the Pope, which is kind of fun, from Chicago, like the Bears. And then he was sent by Pope Francis over to Peru. I think it was Pope Francis at the time, but the Pope at the time sent him over to Peru, where he spent a long time, and he actually became a dual citizen of America and Peru. And then he wasn't made a cardinal until 2023, but he's since then been the guy in charge of like finding new bishops and elevating priests up to the bishop position. So obviously he had some friends inside the conclave, and it worked for him yesterday. Now, we had somebody from the Catholic channel join us, and he was saying almost no one was predicting that this would be the guy. And that really is true. If you look back at the articles like leading up to this, he was not mentioned by virtually anybody except these two people. The first one that I want to show you is the man who conducted the christening of all three of my children, Father Jonathan Morris, who later left the priesthood, and now instead of calling him FJ, we have to call him FFJ, as in former Father Jonathan. But he says, my kids' christenings are still legit. They still count. But here he was 3 days before the conclave in Rome.
We're talking about papabili, the candidates to be the next pope. And today I would like to talk to you about two American names who are actually in the mix, which has not really been the case in recent conclaves. The first one, you might not know him. His name is Robert Prevost, Prevost. He's an Augustinian priest, so he's part of a religious order who was called by Pope Francis to Rome in just 2023 to be a head of a very powerful department of the Vatican in charge of naming bishops or proposing to the Pope names of bishops throughout the world. But he's really an enigma to many, not only cardinals, but American cardinals. That's because although he's from Chicago, 69 years old, he spent most of his life outside of the United States as a missionary and then as a missionary bishop in Peru. Certainly he's in line with Pope Francis, or at least Pope Francis was convinced of that, because he called to him to take over a very important department. But he's also known as a pragmatist.
Okay, one more, credit where it's due. Piers Morgan had Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, he's predicted so much accurately on his show a week ago, and here's Steve Bannon.
I do think one of the dark horses, and I think, unfortunately, he's one of the most progressive, is Cardinal Prevost. I don't think he's getting enough play. He is certainly on the short list. Prevost is one of the ones closest to Francis ideologically. He's also had tremendous experience in Latin America, and so he's one of the ones on the short list.
Steve Bannon is the bomb. I mean, it's one thing for FFJ to know it because that's his business. You know, he still knows the church so well. But right. Steve Bannon, he's got his finger on the pulse. Anyway, what do you make of it? Because there's been a bunch of reporting about this Pope he voted in Republican primaries in Illinois, and he is anti-transing of children and trans ideology. That seems clear from some of his tweets and remarks. He's, of course, against abortion. He doesn't believe in gay marriage. These are not surprising things for the Catholic Church. And he's pro-migrant, doesn't surprise me either. But he has had 5 tweets or retweets in the past couple of years critical of either J.D. Vance, Trump, or Trump's immigration policies in particular. So what do you make of it?
Well, I think he's allowed to retweet or tweet whatever he wants. You know, he's the Pope. He's going to be living over there. He's not involved in our politics. I can't wait to see a meeting with President Trump, J.D. Vance, and the new Pope, Prevost. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly.
Just call him Leo.
Yeah, Leo. I love Leo. I think it's a fun name. And I loved FFJ. I thought he looked great, too. The green jacket, the full head of hair. It's like a Rogaine ad.
Look good.
He looked great. And he knew to do the angle up. You always got to angle up, never down. He looked great. So I'm happy for new Pope Leo. But like I said, I don't think we should really be bothered by some tweets he did. I think, though, it does speak to someone's whole entire ethos, though, if they are pro mass migration or if they're more staunch and tough on immigration. I think it does speak to a little bit of someone's character. But at the end of the day, the guy's from Chicago, a very blue city. So even if he's a Chicago Republican, he might not be where we are right now with the Trump administration. I
think there's not going to be a pope who's not pro mass migration.
Right.
That's
right.
It's Catholicism. I mean, that's Catholicism. They're very pro-migrant. Wash the poor, the feet of the poor and the hungry and those who need us. And we're a bunch of bleeding hearts at bottom, unless if you're trans or gay, in which case, no. Sorry, Link. No, they love gays. They love gays and lesbians. They just don't want them to get married.
Well, I was just speaking to the things I was seeing on X. I'm not saying that's how I personally feel. I'm just saying on X, the criticism seemed to be the retweets about immigration and Trump and JD Vance. But like I said, he's welcome to say whatever he wants. He's the Pope, right? We're over here in the US doing our own thing. I don't understand why people are so upset about his retweets, if that makes sense.
Yes. Well, I think I can speak to this because as a Catholic in America, Pope Francis, God rest him, was very progressive and kind of turned the church in a progressive direction and did some battle with America and our president for a while. And when it was Donald Trump, not when it was Joe Biden. And we didn't much like that. So it's great to see an American Pope. And I actually am open-minded to this Pope, notwithstanding those tweets. I really think even a conservative-leaning Pope could have sent out those tweets because I'm sorry, the Catholic Church is very pro-immigration. It's not my favorite thing, but it's the truth. Right. So I don't think we know enough about him yet to know what kind of Pope he will be. Now, here's something fun, though. He's from Chicago, White Sox, not Cubs, from what I read. And his brother, John, he's got like a normal brother, John Prevost, living in Chicago still, who gave a presser yesterday to everybody who was knocking down his door. And listen to him talking about his brother Bob.
You said you spoke to him right before Conclave? Tell me what that conversation was like.
Really? First we do Wordle, because this is a regular thing, okay? Then we do Words with Friends. It's something to keep his mind off life in the real world. And then we talk about what's going on, and I said, well, do you have your red socks? That doesn't go over well all the time. And then just that kind of stuff, and I said, well, are you ready for this? I said, did you watch the movie Conclave so you know how to behave? And he had just finished watching the movie Conclave. So he knew how to behave. So it's that kind of stuff.
Amazing. He just finished watching the movie. I'm pretty sure this Pope is not intersex, so we've done better than that ridiculous movie. But isn't that cool? It's like you never think of the Pope, it's just being like a regular guy. He grew up Bob, and that's his brother John.
Having friends, family, playing Wordle. I love it. And I love that the brother's out there doing interviews and pressers on the front lawn. It's very like Thomas Markle, Samantha Markle. It's like, we're going to go do press and interviews too. Like, our man made it, you guys. Our guy made it. We're going to go do... I'd be making the rounds if I were him, okay? So I don't blame him at all for being on the front lawn.
Think of the money he could make with just like baby pictures of the Pope, or like the silly toddler videos that we all shoot now of our kids. I wonder if he's got some of Bob. Now Pope Leo.
Calling.
I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that he's an American, so all of these references are going to be familiar to us. He's going to have some of the same habits as we do. I don't know. It's just kind of cool to think about because he's, we believe he gets elevated by the Holy Spirit. And so Bob, the Wordle lover, who watches the same TV shows we do, is now Pope and leader of 1.4 billion Catholics across the globe. Very cool stuff. This July, there is a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. The bloc of emerging superpowers, including China, Russia, India, and Iran, are meeting with the goal of displacing the US dollar as the global currency. They're calling this the Rio Reset as BRICS nations push forward with their plans. Some worry global demand for US dollars will decrease, bringing down the value of the dollars in your savings. While this transition won't happen overnight, the Rio Reset could mark a pivotal moment. So learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting MK to the number 989898. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.